complex problems that deal with other people's lives. Many situations you encounter that involve any kind of decision making is going to have an impact on yourself and on others. And ethics is our way of dealing with these problems and decisions we make. Each person develops their own kind of code of ethics, their own personal ethics. These are developed at an early age from childhood experiences, possibly traumatic experiences, your family values, if you have any religious background. All of these together go into how you make ethical decisions, and by the time many people get into industry, these moral attributes have already been established and are kind of there's a firm foundation for how they make their ethical decisions. And moral autonomy is the ability for each individual to make his or her own ethical decisions based on their views. So, with ethics, we have to deal with the question of what is the right decision, or is there a right decision? For many situations, there are going to be many different answers. But the right decision is one that's consistent with your own moral principles. It's also consistent with the accepted codes of conduct that you may have in industry and with any accepted obligations that you may have with your company. It also has to be consistent with the law and consistent with any applicable code of ethics. There are several strategies to resolve ethical problems. One of these strategies is rehearsal. There are many resources that provide ethical dilemmas that you can read, kind of like case studies that you can read and think about how you would handle the situation that's presented. It's often beneficial to work on these rehearsal studies with other people. That way you can get different viewpoints of how to handle a situation. There's also a reflection in your action. After you have made a decision, go back and reflect on how that decision affected you, how that decision affected others, and how you went about that process, and if there's any way that things could be improved or made better next time. It's also important to rank your ethical obligations. You have to decide what is the most important to you or to your company. And we have to acquire all the information that we can before making any kind of decision. If we don't have information about what all is involved, well, we cannot be expected to make a good decision on the problem. We also have to be honest and ready to accept responsibility for our decision. Some ethical situations that may come about. One is mobile truth. This happens when your affinity or obligation to a company affects your own moral decisions. You become so clouded by your attachment to a company that it blinds your decision making. Just to use an outside example, you see this a lot with people's passion for sports teams. They've become so passionate about their favorite team that everyone else is not as good. And that can be, part of that can be carried over into the workplace, and that becomes very dangerous because you're just making decisions based on your company being best and not taking into account how other people can be affected by your decisions that are outside your company. Then you have non-professional responsibilities. You have to consider how this affects your personal life, how it affects your family life, and things like that. And also we have to remember that we have certain duties and obligations to a company that we are required to uphold. And there are also formal codes of ethics in order to take a job that we are required to whole as well. Now I'll let Chris talk about professional registration.
Professional registration. It's something y'all are all kind of familiar with. The first phase of it is to take and pass the fundamentals of engineering test, or the FE exam, to become an engineer in training. And has everybody taken the test in here, or no? Well, it is a 2-part, 8-hour, 4-hour test. In the morning there's a general test with 120 questions, each 1 point each. In the afternoon there is a second section that is a focus part for chemical environment, whatever you choose to take. And it is 60 questions, 2 points each, and for a total of 240 points, and a nominal passing score is about 168 questions, correct, give or take. And that is phase 1 to becoming a professional engineer. Phase 2 is the PE exam, which if you take and pass it, it allows you to offer your services to the public. Without this exam, you can't, or without this title, you can't be a consultant or expert witness. And a lot of states, a lot of government engineers with that title, you have to be a professional engineer. And to be able to take this test, you first need to undergo 4 years of responsible work, which is conducted under professional engineers, so they can vouch for your work and your credentials. And once you pass this test, you're able to, it's a good indication of your competence in the field. And next we're going to move on to legal liability. Whenever you take a job, you should first become acquainted with the laws and regulations in the state and within the firm itself. And if you're unsure of legal issues, as many of us probably will be or are, it is often useful to seek help from a licensed attorney who knows what they're doing and is familiar with these issues. And a lot of the rules and regulations that you must abide by are given by the Environmental Protection Agency or the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, or the Department of Transportation, just to name a few. And a lot of these regulations are listed under the Federal Registrar, and failure to abide by these regulations could result in criminal cases or criminal punishment, such as if an employer allows an employee to remain under hazardous conditions. It's a violation of an OSHA regulation, and therefore criminal punishment may follow. And this also involves the contractual obligations from the firm. And along with this is just business codes of conduct that are typical within a workplace. And one of the major ones is to avoid conflicts of interest. And an example of this would be if, for your firm, you are to order a certain type of, say, valve, as the book is an example. If you were to order valves for your company, and you order from a business that you have stock shares in, rather than a cheaper or practical valve provider, then that would be an example of a conflict of interest, and there's a no-no. And for a business, a typical code of conduct is to confidentiality and proprietary knowledge, which is, patents and design for your firm. And also there's confidentiality in personal information. Keep that secret. It should be shared amongst the public knowledge. Also, employee relations is quite an issue to consider whenever hiring potential employers. And also just keep contractual obligations within the firm and adhere to their codes of conduct within the firm. And that is it for business codes of conduct and our presentation. Any questions?